I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 19th, 2012 meeting of Intermountain Humane Society's Board of Directors. The meeting is opening at 6:34 p.m. IMHS serves animals and people by offering programs that promote animal health and responsible pet stewardship and foster compassion towards animals. All right. First order of business is just a quick moment of silence for unnamed kitten and Peanut. Okay, thank you everybody. We'd like to welcome Sharon Thompson, our newest board member. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. And who was Peanut?
Peanut was one of our foster kids.
Oh,
So was unnamed.
oh. I
Our
thought
little
Peanut was
day-old
a
kittens that came up from Denver.
Okay, business update. In no particular order, the annual meeting notice was mailed yesterday and today, 4/18 and 4/19. And Karen will be adding the notice to the flume update, and I guess sending it next week. And I guess the High Timber Times is not posting our ads right now, but Marta's checking into that. And if we get posted there again, then we'll be in the High Timber Times also. It was moved by Steve, seconded by Matt, to authorize $275 for the purchase of programmable thermostats for the entire building. And thank you to Ken for all your research on that. And Ken will be coordinating getting those installed. And that was passed on March 23rd. The PACFA license for 2012 was renewed and it's in Google Docs. Thank you, Wendy, for taking care of that. And I don't have the dates. I had a little brain problem today. But the medical designated provider policy was moved and approved over the course of the month. I just don't have the date with me. I think that covers all of the business. Dave, can you pass that down to Kathy for the records? Thank you. Any questions on the business update? All right, moving on. Shelter director report. Marta's not with us tonight, so Karen's going to be filling in. Karen, you're on.
Yeah, I passed it out. I actually didn't even read it, so I'm not sure what she put in there. But if you have any questions, please direct them to Marta.
Okay. Is it okay with everybody if we just put this on and reread it when we get a chance and ask us questions? All right. That was the quickest report we've ever had from Marta.
Should she have the rest of her teeth pulled?
One at a time. All right, next is the shelter manager report. So Karen.
Okay, so I passed out the first draft of an evacuation response plan for IMHS. I am going to get that to you electronically. I just didn't have time to do it before the meeting today, so I welcome comments, criticism, rewrites.
On what?
It's the big
Oh, the evac, okay, sorry.
evacuation and response, just disaster response. We could have to evacuate for other things than a wildfire because of this spill into 85 or something, so
So it looks like you've put a lot of work into this.
I tried looking up stuff. I think the first thing we need to do is make sure the shelter phones are on the 911
Reverse 911 list.
and somehow get them on both Park County, get it on both Park County and Jeffco. And I included in that plan the websites that, I mean, I'll do it, but the websites for everyone, if you want to do your cell phones and stuff.
Okay.
So then what's the next step?
Well, the next step would be to designate people in, you know, like, I think it would be hard to call on our foster families, because most likely if the shelter is evacuated, most of our foster families are gonna be evacuated. So this plan just addresses getting the animals out and just to the designated shelter, you know, set up like they did at Conifer High School or something, getting them there, and then we'll have to work on what to do with them. You know, like addresses the first 3 days at being at a shelter facility. And then if we can place them into homes from there. But I think the first part of it should just be getting them out of the shelter into a safe shelter set up by Jeffco Animal Control and I think EAPL. And then we have to work on memos of understanding. We should write those up with EAPL and Animal Evac. I'm not sure if we have to do Jeffco Heat, that's large animals. And my understanding was that there might have been one with Animal Evac, but we should probably redo it.
My understanding was it was verbal, so.
Yeah, so we should probably get one written, and that's addressed in here also. And then the list at the end is just, I stole that from another plan, but we should probably just have some designated bins that have this stuff in them that we can just grab so that we don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the plan opens up with, you know, like every year, look in the bin and see what's there and make sure it's all still good and just have it marked, you know, for evacuation only.
Like at one of the sheds or something?
Yeah. We have plenty of bins and stuff, so. And some of that stuff may not be appropriate, but it would enable us to take care of our animals at a different place without being a burden to others.
Because the animal evac people have a lot of this stuff already.
Yeah, but they also have that for all the animals they evacuate.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think we should
We
bring that
wouldn't
on.
have 40 pounds of food.
We have 2,500 pounds of food right now.
I mean, we don't carry 40 pounds with us.
You don't?
Evac people, no.
No, but I mean, we would probably have, you know, a 40-pound bag of dog food and a 40-pound bag of cat food for our animals,
Yeah,
you know, in a safe place, or two bags worth or something.
Well, this is looking very excellent, very comprehensive, and I look forward to reading it in detail.
I also passed out the shelter inventory at date. If you notice, there is handwriting all over it. I ran this report on April 1st and realized that the cats listed at the bottom of the first page aren't showing up at the report. The report run, and I looked up where they're at, and like Missy was adopted on 3/18. She never shows up on the report. So there's still something wrong with ASM. We'll have to look into it. The rest of them are at retailers, and I don't know if there's something in the retailer table that's saying they're not really there or something.
Okay, we'll probably have to submit a question about that one. I suspect it's probably how ASM is designed to say shelter inventory. I don't know if you're going to have to run a retail, you know, an at retail location or something like
But
that.
like
before.
Thomas shows up,
So
he's
it's
at the
just,
bottom of the second page, and he's at Petco Crestline,
Okay,
so,
all right, yeah, I'll have to look into it.
and Foster showed up. I did the in-out summary by species for the month of March, from 3/1 to 3/31. Now you have to remember, this does not account for animals already in the shelter on 3/1. This is just those that came into the shelter and left the shelter. So that you're always going to have the extras that were already there and the ones that are remaining at the end of the month. But we brought in 56 total and adopted out 41.
Yeah, that seems kind of high. That's 15 animals left over at the shelter at the end of the month.
Potentially more. 'cause it's just-
Potentially more because of the ones that were already there. So if
We have
we had,
litters of
if we
kittens
had
in foster
10,
care.
Oh, right, okay. Kittens and foster care kids, that would probably count for what it might.
but if we had 20 in the shelter already, well, no, they would be there on the 1st. But this is only those that came in.
Right.
So if there were already 10 there from February 15, they wouldn't show up on this.
Right, I understand, but what I'm saying is, based on this, we would have had 15 animals left over at the end of the month that didn't go anywhere,
Plus however many.
plus however many were already in the shelter, and that seems, we don't have 15 in the shelter right now, we have very few.
Yeah, but on March 31st, I mean, that's like 5 or 6 dogs and 9
Yeah,
cats.
but the
Does that,
litters, yeah,
does
okay.
that count all the pet calls, pet smart ones?
In his thoughts, or? I don't think so. Because, yeah, we've got 4 Pet Smart locations and all the litters of kittens in foster care right now.
And don't forget, this ends on April 31st.
March 31st.
I mean, March 31st.
Okay.
And we've taken in how many cats this week?
And we're doing a physical inventory every month anyways, right?
Yeah, that's what the one I just did.
So this one will tell us how many were there at the end of the month.
Okay.
So yeah, I run this report and then I go through and look at all the cats, and I look at all the dogs, and I look at everybody in foster, and I look at everybody in retail.
Okay.
And that's how I found these 5, so.
All right. And I'll spend some time to do this month and figure out what's going on with
ASN.
ASN. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Karen?
Year to date, we're staying pretty much in line with what the shelter's done in the past. We're doing better, worse, same.
Well, compared to last year, it's probably 500% higher, but this was the worst quarter for last year. And
Yeah.
years prior, we'd have to look back at the stats. I imagine that you guys are probably a little bit ahead of the.
I think so. I thought Margaret had said, oh yeah, because she asked me for that, that summary that went by month. And, she had asked me for that a few weeks ago. And she said we were ahead of last year. So-
Right, which I think everyone expected because they really didn't get to do adoptions for the first quarter of last year. What I'm curious to see are a couple of years before that. Because last year was
I
the year
could
they
look at
couldn't
that.
do many.
I don't want your phone. Well, I can look at that, because I can look at
I'm
that
just
report.
curious.
I can say that when we get into the finances, the program fees are right where I budgeted it, and I budgeted that to have an increase over previous years, so
Cool.
we're bringing in some money for it at least.
Oh, and then we had well, you all know, but I'll just say that, the kids had their pie eating contest in March and raised $1,200 for us. And then the other thrift store in Pine Junction gave us a check for $1,006 for their sales in March, which Margaret probably would put in her report. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the art students at Conifer High School are having an art show in May that I just found out about. And they raised money through that show and they chose IMHS.
Really?
Who's this?
Wow.
The art students at Conifer High School. So they make stuff that they sell at the show and then they'll give us the profits or the
A donation?
yeah, proceeds from that.
Thanks. Let us know when the changes.
It's May 20th and 21st, and it's at Peak Academy of Dance. And she said that they've made,
Sunday and Monday?
is that a Sunday and a Monday? Maybe. Okay. I think those are the dates I remember. I just got the email today, so. But they make like journals and, things that they think people will buy. And then their art is on display, so. You can forward that email.
Any other questions for Carolyn?
Didn't the Elks Lodge give us some money from bingo?
Oh, yeah, that was in
That was
March.
600.
That was 600. Yeah.
Yeah, Deb sent me an email on that.
They,
I thought I'd mention it for her.
yeah. And I don't know how that works. They actually donate to 32 different organizations. Most of them are in Evergreen. There were only 2 on 285, and that was us and the Mountain Resource Center. And I think that they're the grand poobah of the Elks Lodge. I don't know. They're officers of the club, choose who the charities are. And I mean, they've chosen IMHS before. So.
Any other questions?
Oh, wait, just one, do you know anything about Ark Valley Humane? Is Michelle gone
Is Michelle gone?
from Ark Valley? Or do you talk to them, or does it just not talk to them?
We got an email because Michelle was leaving.
Oh,
I
okay.
think Amber from Connor Animal Shelter, someone left Ark Valley, is it Michelle?
Mhm.
And so Amber is not really taking her place, but helping them,
Mm.
helping them choose someone else. And we were gonna get 5 dogs from Connor Saturday, but they have to put a dog down to distemper. So they put their transfers on hold. We're gonna get some nice dogs. Another Yeti, only female.
All right, next on the agenda is Matt with the grant committee.
I haven't sent out any new requests this month. We're on the agenda of the next board meeting, the Loretta Boyd Charitable Trust. I just need to give them a couple additional pieces of information before the meeting. I think they've granted a couple years ago about $8,000. But I have a few more that I'm looking at get prepared. So that's all.
Any questions for Matt?
Then we had that one that Mitch
Oh,
organized.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Do you want me to keep sending you those things I get in the mail all the time?
Yeah, I'll keep reading them. A lot of them are for much bigger organizations than us, but yeah, I'll keep reading them. Thanks.
All right, operations committee, you're up, Dave.
Not really anything new to report. Surgery suite continues to function well.
Nelson's doing great though. Nelson?
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Killing it, nice.
Nelson was a cat that came in with a large infected wound on his back. He's doing very well.
That stuff.
It's pretty
I don't know,
fun.
that's-
Yeah.
We put some magical stuff that we got from Monrock on there.
Magic pixie dust,
Yeah,
Pixie gel.
pixie gel.
and he's doing really, really well.
Excellent.
Anything else, Kathy?
No, I don't think so, just researching some general equipment. So we can find some. Excited to have the funds for that.
There's some sick puppies too, right?
Well, there were. I didn't know that you wanted me to go into all the specifics, but the two young cattle dogs got acutely ill, and it looked like parvo, but they ended up being parvo negative. They responded really quickly as far as the digestive signs went, but the female of the two subsequently became very erectile fever with lameness in her back legs, and this was all fairly acute, and so we ended up taking her to Bone Rock again, They x-rayed, basically it looks like an immune mediated type of problem. And she's responding well and fairly normal at this point, right Karen? So we got to wean her off of the steroids and then we'll get her spayed. Her brother was neutered and adopted on Sunday.
So probably a couple weeks out, at least with surgery.
Yeah, at least 10 days, something like that.
Yeah, depending on blood work, but yeah.
So
That's
I
fantastic.
think as soon as we get her off the steroids, we can't do the surgery while she's on the steroids because it delays, can delay healing. So that's where we stand with Wendy, the little cattle dog. The white cat, Gizmo, has conjunctivitis. 3 kittens that we got in from Denver Municipal yesterday have similar symptoms, severe conjunctivitis. Karen's done a good job during the past 24 hours getting them to eat and not having to be bottle fed. Yeah.
Yay.
But they could go sour here real quickly at that young age. What else, Kathy? Karen?
That's about it. Really.
Everybody else has been healthy.
Yeah.
They were adopting them out.
Hannah continues to do fantastic.
I love her.
Yeah, she's great.
She's amazing.
And Mamie's still doing well.
Yeah, Mamie's in our house. She's-
And what's it, Starburst?
Sarah's doing great. Sarah's, she's got a lot of names.
Yeah.
She's probably.
She's, well, you
So,
showed me pictures of her.
Mamie is at our house. Mamie is a cat that has chronic diarrhea, probably inflammatory bowel disease. We're hoping it could be lymphoma. We don't know. We're treating her. She's responding fairly well. And are we still fostering that kitten? Have we adopted
You
her?
Starburst? Oh, I just said she's probably a keeper.
Yeah.
She's, her adopted, but she would be very difficult to place with her
Yeah.
condition.
She's a kitten that was born at our, or not at our house, but was taken to our house soon after she was born when we were dealing with the ringworm, because I didn't want the whole litter exposed to ringworms, so we fostered the mama and the kitties. And of the 5 kittens she had, this kitten has a mega esophagus, which is a problem with the esophagus, and she has problems keeping things down. So she's a special needs child. He lives in our house. She's doing quite well.
I
And
think that's it.
is a foster in,
Hmm?
she's a foster cat, and I'm unsure that we're going to end up being fostering on her. So
I've so many before.
that's all I can think of.
Okay, any other questions for Dave?
Let me ask the board, do you want me to give a report like that? I felt that as an operations committee, I should just get more along the lines of how your surgical suite going, that type of thing. But I can give a report.
Questions, yeah. Especially if there are some people, you know, that show up in the shelter sometimes, and we don't always get to know them.
Sure, I'd be more than happy for
So are you guys gonna buy the dental equipment?
yeah, eventually, but,
It's just gonna take a little bit to find the right thing. What's out, there's a lot of different models and not something that's gonna work well.
these days, there just isn't a lot of good used equipment available, and I think we're better off with good used equipment than new equipment, but we just gotta do some shopping.
Okay.
Same with the surgery table.
Well, the other thing is figuring out how we're gonna deal with the water that we used during that.
Yeah,
I'm sure we figure something out.
when you do dentals, you use a lot of water, and it has to drain somewhere, and the setup up there now will make it difficult. Most surgery tables have a natural draining system on them, and that would pretty much solve the problem, just hang a bucket at the end of it. But the one we have doesn't, so.
And the Boyd grant that we submitted earmarked $1,000 specifically for dental equipment as well.
Cool.
So if that grant gets approved and they specifically say, use it for dental, then
Then we'll have more money.
plenty of money to get some great.
Yeah. Maybe
It's
we-
possible that they'll just give us the full amount and not say you have to spend this much on that, but since we asked for it in particular, we might.
Great.
Any other questions for Dave? All right, thank you, Dave. I think that's the most you've talked to in a while.
I do have a comment for Dave. We've had a visit at the clinic, we've had our tour, and it's an amazing job up there. You did great.
Bernard did most of it.
Oh, well,
Yeah, to the board's credit, we allowed him to do it. And I also, well, I'll leave it at
no,
that.
I was very impressed.
Thank you. If it wasn't,
Yeah.
Pleased.
All right, the fundraising committee, Deb is out of town, so I just asked Sharon, Cheryl, and Wendy any comments about the fundraising committee that you might have.
Raffle tickets are pure profit from this point on.
Excellent.
So anything that we sell is pure profit for raffle tickets. From here on out, we've already covered all the costs.
I guess we're going to King Supers on Saturday.
Yep.
It's Deb printed more before she went out of town.
Yeah, that's funny. Just need to sell it later.
Yeah, and we'll file the raffle report before the end of the month for the first quarter.
Oh, right, I need to get you the membership list, don't I?
Somebody does.
Were you able to use one of your tickets to
Actually, Karen,
clean in the board?
you can-
I
Most
wrote
recent
it,
membership
I have
list
it in
out
my
of
stack, so when I
ASM
send
for
in
sure.
the
Yes,
report,
yeah, I
the
don't have
report,
access.
I'll include the word
oh, we
in.
installed that, or use one too?
Yeah, I do.
yeah,
Does that help?
yeah, a bunch had sold at last raffle at the drawing.
And I think after Deb gets back, we're going to have a meeting on the silent auction,
Mhm.
so.
That's start planning for that, yeah.
uh,
It's almost never too early to start planning, is it?
I hope I haven't counted her.
She'll tell you. All right, thank you guys, unless anyone has questions for Deb and the crew. All right. Technology committee report. As I mentioned in the business update, the new thermostats are in. Ken is coordinating with Brian. Is it Brian? Do I have the name?
Yeah.
Brian. He's a thrift store, occasional thrift store volunteer now that he's back working regular hours. But he's an electrician, and so he's going to help get those installed. The laptop that we had down in the office, we gave to the thrift store so they can use to check prices online and compare and stuff like that. And based on the conversation at our last board meeting, Ken has started researching new PCs. Really hasn't gone anywhere yet, probably won't until after the annual meeting. We'll hopefully have some more free time to look into that in more detail.
What was the volunteer electrician?
Brian? Brian? I forget his last name, but.
And it's begins with an S.
Can our IT guy at work too, he said he can usually get a little bit cheaper prices than normal, so I'd be happy to ask him if we know what
Yeah,
we want.
appreciate it.
And, I mean, if I can give him, this is what we're looking for, can we pay you to get them for us kind of thing?
I can send you an email.
Yeah, I'll do that. Then I'll just forward it to him.
Awesome. And then I'll get together with Ken and whoever else wants to be involved. We'll have to make up a plan for switching over the computers as all this goes on. So we'll start with the server, make sure we get that in QuickBooks or whatever we come up with, that sort of thing. Any questions for tech committee? Finance committee, Wendy.
All right, I handed out the treasurer's report. I made less copies of all the financials, so if you want to see them, there's a few copies left up here. But I didn't know how many people actually look at it. So I'm just going to read through everything since the last board meeting. March 20th, processed payroll, paid the bills. I received a notice from the IRS dated March 12th that the first quarter of the 2001 quarterly federal tax return from last year was not filed. It was due April 30th of last year, so I just completed it and sent it in. Emailed the thrift store financials to the volunteers, which happened later that month than usual. I normally would have done that before our board meeting. 21st, we had the finance committee meeting. We decided we're going to begin tracking and reporting the value of donated supplies. So essentially what we're going to be doing is booking up the income, and we're going to use a non-monetary donated items account, and then we'll be expensing those amounts that are used every month as well. So we're going to essentially be booking up the income and expenses to kind of show a more true and accurate record of our budget. Because we get so much donated that never gets booked in, and nobody really knows how much it is that gets donated.
What level of detail is that going to have?
What do you mean?
I mean, are you going to account for every can of dog food or?
More or
every
less,
roll of
yeah. I
paper
gave
towels?
the girls a chart to write everything down and to try to find the best approximated value.
So that actually counts towards our income, so when we're applying the grants and stuff, that helps.
Well, and it'll count towards the expenses as well, so it's going to, I'm guessing it's going to show our budget to be about 50,000 higher, than what we're showing right now, which what we were wanting is something a little more accurate as to how we operate. So we get so much
Oh, yeah, sure.
donated that we never show it anywhere, so.
A lot of people just buy it and bring it over, and
Yeah.
they probably still have the receipt, so you can get a copy of the receipt if you want it.
Right, or they could at least give you a good estimate of how much they just spent on
Will
it.
we have to pay taxes on that?
No, we don't pay taxes on anything anyway.
Okay, that's for now.
And where we don't have to send back forms to the donors, they just fill out their own thing anyway, so it doesn't go up inside.
Right, we do give the,
We give the blank form.
yeah,
Yeah, and then they fill out what they think, what they gave us, what they think it's worth.
yeah.
Sometimes they want it filled out, which is fine. And I was gonna tell you, Demos actually gave us food
Oh, really? Wow.
when I went down on Sunday. He gave us 2 cases of cat food canned and a bag of cat food.
Oh, cool.
I was like, they're like, do you need food? Yes. Yes,
Always.
please.
So the second thing that we talked about at the finance committee meeting was the method that we were using for sponsored expenses. And what we decided with that is we're going to encourage people to directly pay certain expenses that they want to sponsor. So if what we were talking about was Deb's sponsorship of half of the,
Band for the map.
yes, what is that, the combined chamber map.
The 285 285 tourism map. What's that called? Is that what it's called? But it's combined with that canyon and Conifer.
The actual name of it was the Foothills Adventure Map, but we're just telling everybody 285 tourism map because they didn't want to get into
It
the
looks
explanation.
really nice.
So what we were talking about was Deb paid for half of that, and she and I kind of had conflicting ideas on how we wanted to book that. So what we decided is we would encourage people to pay for those types of things directly, and if and when we get people who want to write the check to us and have us restricted for that specific use, it will get booked in as income, and then the related expense will go out as an expense. And I won't get into more detail unless anyone wants it.
Well, I have a question. Do they still get to deduct that then?
Yeah.
So
Our internal conversation was that Deb would have preferred to have booked the income to the expense directly. And I just don't like doing that. So that was why we came up with that. It has no effect on whether or not it's tax deductible. for the
Because they're
donor.
still donating to IMHS,
Right.
which is 501c3.
Yeah. And the third thing that we did is we made semi-final revisions to the investment policy, and we'll talk about that, I think, a little bit later. And we're going to request until the end of this year to come into full compliance with it, because it does make some pretty significant changes to our investments. On March 28th, paid bills reconciled to checking account, processed March 941s to withdraw on April 13th, processed all the quarterlies. April 3rd, processed payroll, paid bills, transferred the PayPal donations, and reconciled the PayPal account. Reconciled restricted savings, updated restricted savings spreadsheet and transferred funds, reconciled the raffle savings account, balanced petty cash, and completed the February adoption income audit, and all the adoption income is accounted for. April 13th, paid bills, reconciled American funds, Oppenheimer and Fidelity accounts, compiled the 2011 board minutes summary for the 990. Our CPA needs that for our federal tax return. And updated the committee/org chart. The 14th, completed and paid the sales tax, which we're now on a quarterly pay schedule with the state versus annual. Compiled the 2011 director info for the 990 for the CPA. Then on the 16th, prepared, reviewed, and emailed the March financials and thrift store financials. And this is where if you want to take a look at the different reports that I put together, like I said, I kind of cut back on how many I printed, and I'll just run through the overview here. Membership income is still a little bit lower than what we projected. The donations, shelter program fees, debt service program income, and fundraising income is on target. The investments for the first quarter were recorded and is actually quite a bit higher than expected. Overall, we brought in $1,000 more than we budgeted. The expenses, vet service program cost is under budget, with animal services also $1,000 under budget, and that's, I'm sure, due to the surgery suite. So kudos to you guys. Thanks for helping us with that.
Saving us money.
Fundraising expenses was $150 under budget, and that actually is mostly the thrift store expenses. G&A, newsletter, shelter, and staff expenses were right on budget. Actual payroll is right on budget, but if you look at the two different numbers, there's a $400 difference, and that was a work comp insurance payment that we had to make, so it had absolutely nothing to do with hours worked or payroll. So you guys are doing a fantastic job of keeping your hours. So overall, we came in $675 under budget for the expenses. One thing I did want to note is if you look at the March P&L, we posted something like a 34, 44, 88 profit, and that's the highest profit we've ever had in March, and I went back 10 years. And I'm sure that is due mostly to you and Marta, so thank you both for everything that you guys do every day. You're doing a fantastic job. Year to date, we've brought in profited over $4,500 more than what we expected, and we had a really ambitious budget. So everything's just going fantastic. Restricted funds, I just tossed in there so everyone knows how much we've got. We've got a little over $26,000 waiting to build a shelter, and just over $8,700 set aside for different operations programs. I use that money on a monthly basis. When you guys buy stuff for the surgery suite, I allocate some of that from the spay neuter. When we're doing stuffed animals that are transferred in, I take that out of the stock. Anything having to do with cats, I take out the donations strictly for the cats. So that number constantly changes, and we constantly get more money in for restricted as well. And any questions on the financials?
I have one. The federal IRS tax incomes you have to file, are those quarterly? Or
The federal
yearly? The federal tax incomes you have to file, are they all always quarterly or annual or?
The employment tax is monthly for federal withholding, Medicare, and Social Security. That's the 941. That gets processed on a monthly basis. You have to file a report that reconciles it on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
So were you asking about the one that was missing from last year? So it was, they were paying it, everything got paid, they just didn't send in the
file
report, the
Oh, okay.
reconciliation, yeah.
So do we avoid that fine?
There was no fine with that because everything was paid, it was just the actual filing that was missing.
I thought there was a
No, those, and there were, but that was a separate issue.
And is it caught up after that then too? Okay.
Yeah. And then April 17th, paid bills, processed payroll, and completed the March adoption income audit, and all that adoption income is accounted for.
Did it?
For me.
Any questions for Wendy? Old business or open business, I have a problem with that old business, it's supposed to be open business. Associate memberships, Wendy, do you want to give us an update on the status of the associate membership?
We haven't spoken about it since the last board meeting.
Okay.
I don't know, there seems to be conflicting or ambivalent feelings about it, so.
Okay. I'll go ahead and follow up on that, see what we want to do and make a decision about it. And then, just to mention, the insurance policy is due. So we got a letter from the insurance company. We're changing the policy a little bit to include D&O coverage, directors and officers coverage, which would cover us if there were another theft situation, which hopefully there won't be. And I have an email out I need to follow up with. Was there any other old business that I forgot? I threw this together.
Did you want to?